3340 News at 6.
And ABC 3340 News I-Team exclusive, a top administrator at Cooper Green Mercy Health Services in Birmingham has retired. And that's after we started asking questions about him staying on the job for more than a year despite his arrest for possession of child pornography. ABC 3340's News I-Team investigator Brian Pia joins us with these details. It's shocking.
It really is, Brenda. Mark Sussman was on the job and flying under the radar for 15 months at Cooper Green. He was arrested in May of last year. He stayed on the job despite very serious charges. And then, as we prepared our story for broadcast, he suddenly retired.
This is Mark Sussman outside the taxpayer-funded Cooper Green Mercy Health Services. The facility provides primary, urgent, and specialty care for Jefferson County residents who can't afford to pay. Sussman's salary? Nearly $92,500 a year handling special administrative projects at Cooper Green. That includes preparing grant proposals. Sussman was arrested at his Mountain Brook home in May 2017 on charges of possession of child pornography. He was released from jail after posting bond. He was on the job and drawing a salary for more than a year. Natalia Bailey is applying to be a Cooper Green patient.
It doesn't settle well at all, knowing that I have a 1-year-old son. And the type of charges that he has, he shouldn't be in a facility like this at all, period.
While Cooper Green doctors and nurses treat adults, not children, we still saw children with their parents or other adults walking in and out of this facility. Sally Barnes is a patient.
It's just terrible. It's a horrible situation where a person could stay in that power like that.
Lieutenant Brooke Walker is the commander of the Alabama Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. She told us via email that the task force received an investigative lead from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It involved the uploading of what she called child exploitation material through the social media site ChatStep that was accessed through the internet at Sussman's residence. Walker described the material as the documented sexual assault on the child victims portrayed in the images. Walker says, "I can confirm that Sussman's possession of the illicit images was not an accident and was not a pop-up." She also says, "We are confident we have the right house and the right person." So why was Sussman on the job for so long, despite the seriousness of the allegations? Tony Patelis is the chief executive officer for the Jefferson County government. He wouldn't discuss Sussman's case because it's a personnel matter. Speaking in general terms, he says allegations of crimes off the job are very different from allegations of crimes on the job.
Why does it, from your perspective, make sense to go ahead and keep that person on the job?
In this country, you're innocent until you're found guilty. If any employee does anything inappropriate while they're on the job, actions will be taken against them, period.
Patelis would not discuss if any special arrangements were made for Sussman while at Cooper Green, but we're told that Sussman's office was on a floor that was separate from patients and children. Meantime, Patelis spoke in general terms about employees using Jefferson County computers.
Our computers are secured, and if something happens, we'll know it.
Marion Walker is a nationally ranked labor and employment attorney with Fisher Phillips, one of the largest law firms in the country. I asked her about the county's decision to keep Sussman on the job for so long.
The number one is, this happened on his home computer, allegedly, of course. He's been arrested, not convicted, and he's not in jail. So there's nothing to prevent him from coming to work.
Here's a statement from Sussman's lawyer, Tommy Spina. He says, as with anyone charged with a criminal offense in this country, Mark Sussman is presumed innocent unless and until he either pleads guilty or is found guilty by a jury comprised of 12 citizens who hear evidence presented by the government. My client is entitled to the same constitutional protections as you and I would be if we were charged with a crime, regardless of the nature of the charge. Brenda?
Okay, so Brian, what happens next?
So we are awaiting a decision from a Jefferson County grand jury about whether or not Sussman will be indicted. Grand jury proceedings are secret. We will keep you posted.
An ABC 3340 News I-Team exclusive. A fired St. Clair prison assistant warden is trying to get his job back after a sexting scandal. An ABC 3340 News I-Team investigator Brian Pia is here with the details you'll only see here. Brian.
Chris and Brenda, an administrative law judge heard testimony in the case, and he'll make his recommendation soon. Fired St. Clair Prison Assistant Warden Cedric Specs is accused of improper use of a state cell phone and state car, among other violations. In this exclusive interview, Specs made surprising admissions.
I admitted to everything I did wrong.
Fired St. Clair Prison Assistant Warden Cedric Specs and his lawyer Julian McPhillips talked about their attempts to get Specs' job back. Specs says he deserves to be placed on administrative leave or even demoted, but not fired.
I would describe it as a slap in the face.
Over the past 21 years, Specs worked his way up from corrections officer to the number 2 position at one of the toughest prisons in Alabama. According to this state investigative report, Alabama Department of Corrections investigators initially looked at Specs' state-issued cell phone. That's because a confidential source claimed Specs used it to promote contraband at the St. Clair prison. No charges were filed against Specs over contraband, and he denies any involvement.
Were you ever involved with
bringing contraband? No, sir.
But Corrections Department investigators did discover explicit messages and images on Specs' state-issued cell phone. They were between Specs and 3 women assigned to the St. Clair prison. 2 women were nurses. They were independent contractors. The 3rd woman is an administrative assistant. Specs admitted to receiving explicit photos.
You may have a couple, just topless, stuff of that nature.
Specs admitted that he stored the explicit photos on an app on his state cell phone. The photo storage app was disguised as a calculator.
You couldn't just go to the phone and go to the photos and be like, oh my God, you actually had to, see that app actually wasn't a calculator. And know the passcode, to get into where the pictures were.
The state investigative report also says Specs used a state cell phone to send one of the women a nude photo of himself. Specs says he doesn't remember sending that kind of a picture. Specs, who is married, says he had a sexual relationship with 2 of the women who worked at the St. Clair prison.
Yes, I know I was wrong. I don't want to say it's the culture or it's an accepted culture, but it happens.
Specs says he did not have a sexual relationship with the 3rd woman he admits to having nude photos of. And while a Corrections Department document says Specs admitted that he used his state car to pick up one of the women, he denied that during our interview.
If I cannot remember a single time that any of those females been in that state car.
But Specs did say he would drive his state car to meet one of the women for lunch.
We would meet for lunch.
McPhillips says his client should never have been fired.
Very, very wrongfully fired. It was overkill. Department of Corrections, especially I making a mountain out of a molehill.
This letter from Corrections Department Commissioner Jefferson Dunn to Specs alleges a number of workplace violations. But there's another issue. State ethics law says no public official or public employee can use public property for private benefit. Samford University law professor John Carroll is the former acting director of the Alabama Ethics Commission. He spoke in general terms about the state ethics law.
The Ethics Act specifically prohibits a state employee from using state-provided items for personal use. Cell phone, automobile, office, anything like that.
Possible penalties for violating the state ethics law can range from fines to a prison sentence in extreme cases.
The maximum penalty is 2 to 20 years in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Does that scare you?
Well, I tell you what, it doesn't necessarily scare me, because if it comes to that, and of course I take all legal action that I have to, there'll be a lot of people doing 2 to 20 years.
Specs is also accused of pressuring one of the women to send him explicit images. He denies that. He says he was shocked when he saw that allegation. Meantime, the State Corrections Department has no comment. Chris and Brennan.
Incredible story, Brian. What happens next?
Well, the administrative law judge will recommend whether or not to uphold Specs' firing within a few weeks, but the State Personnel Board will make the final ruling. Either party could appeal that decision.
Okay, keep us posted.